there can be no doubt of the absolute terror of the two people in that car. The defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through. And she planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022.
Your Honor, may it please the court. First of all, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Russo and Flanagan family. I can't imagine how difficult this is. It's terrible. People's acts have consequences, and the consequences here are up to you. You have a range of possibilities as it relates to a girl who was 17 at the time, who is now 19 years old and has no criminal record. And as you so correctly pointed out in the opening, the decision when she gets out is up to the parole board. And we know how the parole board operates, and we know that everybody gets flopped at least once. So a 15-year sentence becomes a 20-year sentence at minimum, and it'll be up to this young lady here as to how she's going to conduct herself for the next 20 years or whatever the sentence would be. That would be number one. Second of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for allowing and taking the time to read those letters. And I would like to concentrate on the letters from the people from juvenile court. First of all, Ms. Smith and Ms. Kent. They have been the people who have monitored her progress since she was entered the juvenile detention facility, where she was for about 9 months. And I would like to commend them for writing these letters, because ultimately, or initially, I tried to have them send a letter and the people at juvenile court wouldn't let them. And so they sent these letters anyways. And what do we see from their letters? We actually see where both of them say that she expressed remorse during the time. What the prosecutor played there was after the accident and way before she was ever incarcerated. They also both say that they have observed her grow as a person, that she's taken every single class possible, both culinary and college, that she's actually been a model inmate, the letters say, and that she has exhibited what they call the highest level of behavior. They grade people 1, 2, 3, 4. The better your behavior, the higher the number. She has always received the highest number. She's also been receptive to counseling, and as Ms. Kent said, she has been making amends. I'd ask you to pay special attention to the letter from Kelly Leitner that I think talks about certain, she cites certain things. Ms. Leitner is asking you to consider that the brain is not fully developed until 25 years or older. Her choices, Mackenzie's, and actions are indicative of teenage invincibility. While, based upon your decision, you don't find that, I find that there are. I remember when I was young, the dumbest things I ever did, and I'd hate to be judged for those things. So really now I'm going to give you my observations, because I understand what you talked with Mackenzie's mother about acceptance of responsibility, etc. All I can tell you is that from the moment I met this young lady here, she expressed sorrow. And I would say during the course of this trial, in the initial emails and statements, she said, "I'm sorry for what you did." The prosecutor has said that she hasn't accepted responsibility. Well, as you remember, during the course of this trial, our defense was that it was a reckless homicide. That's taking responsibility for what she believes happened. So I would respectfully disagree with that. I've seen her express true remorse in the times that I met her in jail, and I don't think it's self-serving. I'm going to say as an officer of the court that I feel very confident saying that she has expressed true remorse. So ultimately, another thing that you have to ask for is the likelihood of recidivism, etc. Based upon all of those things, I respectfully request that you run the sentences concurrently. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak?
Not on behalf of the state, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Today is the sentencing of the defendant for the purposeful and intentional murders of Davion Flanagan and Dominic Rousseau. And in a way, it's the second time their families are gathered again to grieve. It's also a day when Mackenzie's family will grieve for the future of their daughter. All three of these families and the friends of these families are suffering, and all of their lives have been irrevocably changed because of the actions of the defendant. The unintended and collateral consequences of a selfish, intentional, and cruel decision by Mackenzie will ripple forever in time. It's literally changed history because it's ended two lives. Two young men are dead. Their deaths were horrible, terrifying, and tragic. I will say again, if any reasonable person reviews Exhibit 802, there can be no doubt in your mind what happened this night. There can be no doubt of the absolute terror of the two people in that car. The defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through. And she planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022. The review of the evidence supports the factual findings, the forensic testimony, the testimony of the first responders, the testimony of the emergency room doctors who treated the defendant, the testimony of the coroner's medical examiner, the testimony of those who knew the victims and the defendant, and the testimony of the BMV official who provided evidence that not only did the defendant deny any medical condition when applying for her license, which her mother co-signed and attested to, but also that just after the accident, Mackenzie renewed her driver's license and again denied any medical condition. In fact, the defendant was so concerned about driving that, as the state mentioned, during the investigation, she asked if they could just suspend her license for 10 years. It is hard to fathom how a person could be concerned about their driving privileges, having just been responsible for the deaths of two people. There was no medical condition that caused this as an accident. There was no mechanical failure of the car. The record is clear on the facts and the evidence. Her mother's uncorroborated statements without any medical testimony or records is not persuasive. It is also important to remember that even if Mackenzie intended to also die in this crash, that is irrelevant. A failed suicide attempt is not a defense to murder. And even in a murder-suicide attempt, when the perpetrator executing the plan survives, the other death or deaths are still murder. There's only one person who's responsible for the pain of everyone in this room, and that person is you, Mackenzie. Nobody else is responsible. This isn't the fault of Dominic's family, or Davion's family, or your family. And I know that each of you have asked your questions to yourselves, what if? What if I had done this or that? The truth of it is, none of us can control the intentions of another. And when there is a purposeful intent to harm or kill someone, it is the perpetrator alone who bears the responsibility for the choice and the consequences and the harm that follows. The difficulty for sentencing today, honestly, is whether or not I believe you should get consecutive sentences. I'm troubled that should I give you a concurrent sentence, that people will believe that somehow I'm being disrespectful to one of the victims. And on the other hand, I have to weigh the punishment. There's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. That won't be up to me. That will be up to the parole board, and that will be up to you to a great extent. I understand that the pain in this room wants me to impose the harshest sentence. But I don't believe that would be the appropriate sentence, because I do believe that Mackenzie will not be out in 15 years. So she's sentenced on count 2, the murder of Davion Flanagan, 15 years to life. She's sentenced on count 1, the murder of Dominic Russo, 15 years to life, to be served concurrent to each other with credit for time served. I'll waive fines, fees, and costs, and your appellate counsel will be assigned. Are there any questions from the state?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
You're innocent.
The courtroom fell silent as Mackenzie's attorney begged for mercy, describing her as a remorseful teenager with no criminal history who had become a model inmate behind bars. Letters from juvenile officers painted the image of a young girl trying to rebuild herself after tragedy. But the entire atmosphere changed the moment the judge began speaking. He rejected every claim that the crash was accidental and methodically explained how Mackenzie had chosen every detail of the deadly night. The route, the victims, even the timing. The judge's voice grew colder as he described the terror experienced by the two young men moments before impact. Then came the line that stunned the courtroom. There's only one person responsible for the pain in this room, and that person is you, Mackenzie. Moments later, she was sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms, ending one chapter of grief while beginning another.